good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you all. My name is Karolina Zborowski, and I am the Director of Global Security Strategic Initiatives at Facebook. I will share my deck in a second, but I will start by actually being very open and very transparent about the fact that I do enjoy presenting to live audiences a lot, where we can all engage in very open dialogue, share, ask questions on the go, and enjoy each other's company. My experience presenting in this virtual environment is very limited because of that. But I've decided to challenge myself today and go way outside of my comfort zone because of the importance of the topics that are specific to diversifying our industries. The benefit of doing this virtually is that we are hopefully somewhere comfortable, not tired with travels, flights, airport experiences, Uber, jet lag. And even though I'm sure many of you are joining from across the globe and different time zones, and even though I'm sure some of us are craving that human interaction at this point, my ask is that you're just present, real, and unfiltered together with me today, and that you work with me as much as possible to stay engaged. Use that chat window. I'll try to pay attention to it, and my moderator is going to be helping me with that. So if you have any questions, if you want to share your thoughts on the go, drop in a hint. Please, by all means, do so. Let's make this again as interactive as we can in this virtual environment and setting. And that's mainly because today we will talk about a very important topic of building inclusive teams. And we will chat about the end-to-end design of such approach, mainly as I know it from my time at Facebook and from my own experiences of building diversified teams. And while my time was spent mainly in global security environment, which focuses mainly on physical security, and in our instance, protecting people, assets, and reputation of Facebook, the challenges with diversifying our industry are no different to the ones I know the cybersecurity industry experiences as well. So hopefully today we can learn from each other and share some best practices that will help drive both of our industries forward. And with that in mind, I will now attempt to share my screen, and hopefully you can. And I will draw your attention to the screen immediately because this is my organization. This is Global Security as we've captured it during our Global 2019 October Summit. We were very fortunate to still meet in person at that point in time. And as you can see in that one photograph, I am extremely fortunate to be surrounded by a very diverse group of amazing, inspiring professionals. But I wanted to introduce you to that large group, at least in this virtual setting, using that photograph as an example. But we'll move on now, and my next step is to actually talk a little bit about myself. So hopefully you will bear with me as I'll share some insights into my journey and into who I am. So I'll start with the obvious, which is my accent. I was born and raised in Poland, that's in Europe, and I lived and worked there till my early 20s. And this is when I had the first opportunity really to build up thick skin and some additional layers of resiliency because I worked in sales. And when I say sales, I mean I started by spending months doing door-to-door sales and knocking on people's doors, and later working in merchandising. This is not, however, the preferred career path for me, and I definitely had other aspirations as well for where I want to spend my time and build those next steps of my career journey. So at some point, together with my then boyfriend, now husband, we've decided to move to Ireland. And that's where I started my career in security in 2005. And this is where I continued to build. This is where that starting point happened for me. And I continued to build that career in that industry from that point on. I spent about 7 years working at Symantec in Dublin, in Ireland, and made my way up, initially supporting the organization as a badging operator, after which I stepped into particular roles of supervisors and managers, and effectively towards the end of my time with Symantec, I was responsible for overseeing and leading the regional security operations center for EMEA and APJ. And this is also when I truly discovered my passion for leading people and teams. After those 7 years with Symantec, my next career move took me to Facebook. And this is where I've been for over 8 years now. I joined the company in 2012 as a security specialist. It was a huge leap. I was not a full-time employee of Facebook at that time. I joined as a contingent worker and a contributor. And after a number of months, I pursued a full-time position with the company in a very similar capacity of a security specialist as well. I then did spend about 4 years working for Facebook in Ireland, in Dublin, expanding my role, and during that time stepping into a position of a regional security manager for EMEA, and for about a year also having a chance to lead as an interim regional security manager for APAC. This part of my journey was very heavily operational. And after about 4 years, I started having meaningful conversations with my leadership, potentially pursuing a different, much more programmatic path with global security organizations. And that led me to my current position. I moved to the US in 2017 to kick off a new division within global security, one of the 4 divisions that are still part of our organization structure. That division was from the very first beginning called Global Security Strategic Initiatives. And during my time in the Bay Area, in just over 4 years, I was able to expand my team from 2 full-time employees to over 40 full-time employees and a number of amazing contingent workers who support me in how I execute and manage across now 6 different departments and through about 20 unique teams as I oversee very unique programs for global security strategic initiatives. And this is also when a different part of my Facebook journey really started. When I moved to the Bay Area, I also knew that I was one of the very few female managers and leaders on the team. I think this is why many women in our organization started leaning on me and sharing feedback on their experience of working in global security and in the industry, things they were proud of, obstacles that they overcame, and some of the ongoing challenges that were still very much part of their journey. And in those conversations, we realized we have an opportunity to bring this group closer together in meaningful ways. And so with 2 other ladies back then, we created the Women in Global Security Resource Group. That stands for WIGS in short. And I chaired the group and later became the executive sponsor of it. At that point in time, that commitment to continue to increase the presence of women specifically in global security was extremely well supported by my leader as well. And the creation of the group created very, very amazing opportunities for us to be real, be safe, and have conversations about not only, again, our own trajectory, but also ways in which we can support our women, other women, and who may want to be part of this still very heavily male-dominated industry. And what connects cyber and physical security is that it's that underrepresentation of women. I know from some of our previous conversations earlier today during this conference that the ratio of women is about 20 to 25%, depending on the studies and the research. It's quite similar when it comes to physical security. And that percentage is significantly lower when it comes to leadership and management positions in both industries as well. But we at Facebook are somewhat fortunate. Our percentage of women is over 35 at this point. So I'm celebrating it, but also in recognition of all of the work that's still ahead of us. And in that, I'll cover some of the aspects of how we think about building those programs with you today, because again, our commitment to that part of our collective journey is strong and unquestionable. When we've kicked off Women Global Security, this is also when I became much more interested in programmatic and consistent approach to increasing diversity of teams. And this is where I began learning about creating intentional frameworks in support of that. And with that, changing slides. Excellent. Went a little bit too far. And with that, I dove deep into the 3 areas of focus that my company identified and created solutions around: defined, the grow, and the keep dimensions. And to that extent, I enjoyed the simplicity of breaking it down this way and focusing on the totality of the employee lifecycle. In today's conversations, we will go deeper into some of those concepts and concepts associated with those streams, and I will share some of the drivers and considerations for each. Generally, though, please see this as an open invitation to connect with me if you would like to learn more about any of these concepts, frameworks, other programmatic and cultural aspects of how we at Facebook and in global security influence the diversification of our teams. My LinkedIn details are attached to my profile, so again, see this as an open invitation, and let's make sure the dialogue continues way beyond the conference today. With that in mind as well, I will jump into the first stream, and because I'm still presenting at you, and again, my invite is open as well for today. If you have any questions, do use the chat window. If you don't have any questions today on the go, please feel free to connect with me afterwards. But we'll start with the find work stream, or find area of focus. And when we think about finding the right talents and sourcing candidates and interviewing them, I'll break it down across some of the aspects of that consideration. First of all, we have to be very intentional in the way in which we find, engage, and hire women into the industry. And because the conference today focuses on women in cybersecurity, I will talk about it through the lens of thinking about women, but obviously that also applies when it comes to other underrepresented groups. But it's critical to create pipelines of women professionals at that start point, at that entry point. And there are some ideas that I just wanted to share with you today. And I know not all of them are possible and achievable, but within those, hope you can pick and choose those who may potentially be applicable in your organization and in your environment. But think about internship. Do you have the flexibility and ability to create an internship program within your space, to encourage more junior candidates to be part of your journey with you? And do you have the flexibility and the capability to engage with schools, colleges, and other industry associations that are known to have a strong presence of women, or at least an entry presence of women, that will allow you to tap into additional talents and resources? With that in mind, however, understand the bias. Women are simply less likely to apply for roles they don't meet the majority of the expectations for. That's a known fact. And I know we're breaking those ceilings and we're changing the way in which we are allowing for that to impact on our willingness and courage to pursue particular opportunities, but it still is a reality. And additionally, women may not have had the career trajectories that created ways for them to diversify their skill set. So the question here is, can you hire women that have business acumen, or maybe most of the required skill sets, and offer any on-the-job training for those individuals as well? Can you invest that time and that resource in creating those entry opportunities for them? And you have maybe in some instances more junior positions, junior level positions that allow for the injection of women into the industry. Again, these are more open-ended questions. These are many considerations that we go through when we think about bringing women talent specifically to global security. And then as we move to candidate sourcing, thinking about the fact that women are less likely to apply for roles they don't check all the boxes for, can you lean on referrals? Do you already have either women or other underrepresented groups or allies within your organization's structure that can refer other candidates and break again those boundaries of uncertainty and insecurity that sometimes are attached to how we think about our opportunities? So with that, we can also consider diverse slate approach. For anyone who's somewhat familiar with Facebook, may know that we feel extremely strongly about a diverse slate approach to recruitment, and a requirement for that predetermined number of underrepresented individuals to be part of the candidate pipeline and interviewing loops is a natural thing. And I know you may think to yourself, it has a potential of becoming a numbers game. But the simplicity of the fact that because we require for a diverse slate of qualified candidates, we also help mitigate the similarity bias by doing so, or our own natural inclination to surround ourselves with people who think, act, and look like us. And by mitigating that similarity bias, companies are just more likely to improve the gender, race, and ethnic representation among the ranks. And the more people you interview that don't look or think like you, the more likely you are actually to hire someone from a diverse background. And if anything, by having diverse representation in our candidate pool, we're inviting opportunities for candidates to be able to stand strong and showcase their capabilities and ability to deliver great results within your organization. At Facebook, we also work a lot with our recruiters. I know not every organization will have a recruiter network and capability. Sometimes it's just the hiring manager that we can work with as well. But we build very close partnership and relationship with our recruiters. And we have invited them to actually spend a lot of time with our organization, learn our business, learn the requirements that are attached to the roles and responsibilities of our people, but also think outside the box and beyond the known parameters of what sourcing candidates in a universe of physical security specifically for us entails. And really encouraging conversations about candidates who may bring other unique skill sets that come from those less intuitive backgrounds and experiences. We've also introduced our hiring managers and recruiters to industries and associations that can help and increase the likelihood of attracting women candidates into our pipelines. That partnership has been extremely beneficial for us. And again, it takes a commitment of time, and it's a two-way street and a two-way conversation, but we've seen amazing value coming out of this. And at the point where we have our pipelines and hopefully we have this diverse group of individuals that are now in that candidate pool, how do we actually go about interviewing them? And how do we continue to mitigate that bias from that actual process? And we can achieve it in many different ways. First of all, with training. Are we training our interviewers? Are we providing them with multiple tools and resources that ensure that bias is removed from the actual interviewing process? Do we look at our interviewing packages and questions that are used during the interviews with that diversity and inclusion lens on? And do we have the right team employed and activated to actually review that? And again, looking at it from the perspective of diversity and inclusion. And are we checking on feedback loops? Are they mitigating risk of bias? Do we have a panel of interviewers in itself that is a diverse one as much as possible? So there are many questions that we can ask ourselves when we think about the interviewing process in itself. At all stages, though, when we think about finding people, we have to check the assumptions throughout the process. Take the time to set some groundwork and review processes, not just individual one-to-one interactions with our candidates, to reduce the chances of making errors in judgments across the board. Excellent. And I'm looking at the comment from, and I'm so sorry if I mispronounce your name, it's either Shama or Shema. Interesting point about women not applying for jobs they don't feel they have all the skills for. So true. Agreed. That is a huge challenge, not only in our industry, that is a huge challenge for women who also struggle with what we sometimes refer to as that imposter syndrome, even when they enter the working environment. We are extremely self-aware. And so when men quite often are going to be presented with opportunities based on their potential, women always want to pursue opportunities, or mainly want to pursue opportunities for which they meet all of the expectations, for which effectively paralyzes us. I know it, I've been there. There were many opportunities that were presented to me in the past. I said no to because I felt I could not deliver within particular spaces because I didn't check all of the boxes. And there are boxes I will never be able to check. I do not have a physical security background. I do not have military background. I did not come from an agency. I did not work for law enforcement. And in many ways, the industry is known for those pipelines to produce candidates for the physical security industry. I came from business, from sales, effectively. And I came with business acumen that's more educational and academic as well. And still am now successful. And I did during my time at Facebook learn to say yes to things, even though deep inside I thought I may not be checking all of the right boxes. And I will always and forever continue to encourage women to just do that and lean on their allies and their resources and their support groups to show that courage and actually pursue different opportunities. Awesome. We're moving on to the grow area of focus. So we now found the candidates, we're thinking about pipelines, we're thinking about creating ways in which we can source candidates through referrals, we're working with our interviewers and our hiring managers. We have all of the right things in place to ensure that we attract that talent and that we hire amazing women professionals to join our ranks. What do we do with them then? We need to continue to invest in them and allow for their growth and for their opportunities to be, again, not biased in any form or shape. And so we have to continue to apply that diversity inclusion lens to all of the community relations, programs, processes, frameworks and structures, how we run our team, how we present individuals with particular opportunities. And so we should think really intensively on removing bias when we consider projects, assignments, and initiatives, and their ownership. Fair and equal distribution of opportunities to members of all of our teams is critical to the success of those spaces and to creation of an environment that is inclusive, but also presents, again, fair chances for individuals to grow and progress opportunities, and also allows them to move outside of their perceived or actual boxes that they might potentially be in based on their current skill sets. Because when we mitigate that bias from the process, we are able to see the full spectrum of talent. And that creates an appreciation for cognitive diversity. And without that diversity of thought, we can't truly innovate. And so harness those different viewpoints, experiences, and backgrounds and perspectives, and make sure in your process of assigning initiatives, assignments, or projects, that you check yourself in for bias and that you challenge your peers and your colleagues to check themselves in for bias as well. Similarly, check for bias when considering promotional opportunities for team members. Evaluate the actual impact in role, deliverables, measures of success. Have that in place already proactively, so when it comes to promotional decisions, you can thoroughly evaluate the candidate's capabilities, skill sets, and actual contributions, and mitigate the risk of bias in decisions based on, again, potential. Men are more known to be favored for their potential, while women are not. So how do you build it into your process a way in which you can also double check on whether that bias is not clouding your judgment when you think about promotional opportunities for women? When building career development programs, however, you have to recognize, as we all do, that one size does not fit all. And flexibility is key, especially these days. If there's anything we've learned on the backbone of 2020 and everything that continues to impact on work-life balance and work trajectories and career trajectories, especially of women, who were impacted much more during the pandemic, and that is effectively impacting like our ability to maintain everything that we've achieved in the industry so far. That flexibility is going to be key. It's always been key, but it's going to be key even more so now. So please always think about introducing multidimensional career growth programs for your teams. Listen to what the community's needs are and understand the population's concerns and the priorities. And don't ever try to solve blindly from the top. I've been there. It's better to build those bespoke programs, solutions, and tailor them to the needs of your people. And for that, you need to listen. Go outside of the comfort zone and actually ask those difficult questions on what those different and unique needs may be. And then take it to the next level. Create an appreciation for what some of the leaders and thought partners in the industry call is co-creation. Rather than inviting women to have a seat at the table, which is powerful and an amazing first step towards ensuring we can use our voices and we can be well represented, have women co-create. When we invite people to be at the table, quite often that in itself indicates there are preconditioned outcomes, there's already an ongoing effort that you're invited to be a part of. Is your voice going to be heard at that point? Or will your voice be heard if you enter a conversation at the point of co-creation? So you co-create, you collaborate, you influence from the very first beginning. And in that co-creation, you can use your innovation and you can increase that diversity of thought in a particular setting as well. And finally, in that grow dimension, I will actually also share a real life example. Something I came across of more and more frequently these days. When we think about growing our people and our women within teams, but also growing and creating opportunities for them to be seen, to be heard, to have a known presence and be able to hold their ground, I came across many women and men, actually, leaders and speakers who do not agree to present in panels, in conferences, or be speakers unless there's a diverse representation that's secured in those. That to me is powerful. And that to me also showcases that everyone can actually take a stand and everyone can make it known to other audiences and other groups as to how they want to continue to create the diversification of particular spaces. And that goes beyond organizations. That touches on the industry then. And that allows us to have even further reach. And when we think about that injection of women as well, specifically, and then with a very intentional effort in itself. So I just wanted to share that because I myself was very impressed with some, again, of the leaders that I respect and value greatly, for them to be taking that stand. And I did definitely make a pledge myself to not only be more involved in conferences such as this, where women can lift each other up and learn from each other and share those best practices, but also with my allies, I'm inviting them to do exactly the same thing and be very thoughtful and mindful on how they want to continue to amplify our own voices by taking on strong stand, even in the instance of their participation in particular spaces. So hopefully that examples is a bit of a seed that we can continue to plant across the board. And with that, I'll actually take a sip of my tea in my Irish Guinness mug. Please don't judge me for it. I'm still in the mood of celebrating St. Patrick's from last week. But with that, we'll move to the keep dimension. So we found our amazing women. They've joined our organization. We are now growing them. We are investing in them. The work does not stop there. We have to create intentional opportunities in how we want to continue to retain our people. We need to retain our women and also allow them, which is one of my best phrases. Whoever works with me knows I say this all the time, and people must be quite tired with it. We need to allow women to be the best versions of themselves. And that can only happen if we create an environment of inclusion. If we create and build inclusive and integrated products, programs, processes done in a consistent, genuine manner that is cautious and deliberate. And the key here is, in my opinion, a twofold approach to create and build inclusive environments and at the same time build them inclusively. As in, invite inclusive advisory teams and boards and working groups, use best practices, seek that peer feedback, and don't do it alone. Lean on your people, resources, allies, colleagues, and peers to deliver those best results. And continue to create those safe spaces for women. Whether these are resource groups, circles, clubs, they don't have to be formal. And if they are, great, you can add additional structures to those, but just do it and be very intentional and meaningful. When we've created the Women Global Security Group, we did not even expect the powerful impact of that space in itself. And that spanned into book clubs and other social circles, and amazing events and opportunities that brought us closer together. At the same time, however, there were many informal things that happened on the backbone of that, and conversations that would, again, lift women up and made this a much more meaningful and intentional experience for them as well. And for anyone who's a leader in this conversation, I am a people manager and a leader. Ensure you have an actual pulse check on the health of your organization. You can't keep people if you don't understand what's going on within your structures. Be open to listen and get uncomfortable if you have to. I have multiple processes in place for me on how I check with my leaders, how I check with my director, I run multiple skip levels. I actually run skip levels with my peer groups as well. Again, I'm very committed to ensuring that I don't miss anything that may be indicating or signaling that things are not going well, especially for the underrepresented groups within my organization. And you can do same. Again, it starts with a conversation quite often. And I am still every now and then surprised with how willing people are to just open up and be so real and so raw with the way they feel about things that again are going well and things that may actually need an improvement. And together we can solve much more successfully. We are so much stronger together always. And finally, bias is a reality. It's one of our biggest challenges to bringing in, retaining, and developing the spectrum of talents that we need. So again, that consistency to drive fairness across all people, programs, and systems is critical to the success of an organization. And that moves me on to allies. Activate allies across all of the dimensions of find, grow, and keep areas. Hold allies accountable as much as you can. Make sure that they show up for women on your teams and beyond your teams. Allies need to understand they have to use their privilege to amplify women's voices. And they have more power than they think they do often. So it's really also creating ways in which we can educate and develop allies, training, conversations, and really strengthening that approach in itself, but also recognizing allies for taking action. Sometimes allies don't even understand the role that they play in your potential experience in an organization or a company. So recognize them as well and make sure that they take, again, an active role in framing a very diverse and inclusive environment within your organization and beyond. And training on allyship and unconscious bias is critical for that. And again, for those of you who are fortunate to have such offerings within your organizations, fantastic, take advantage of those. So allies can be even better activated. If you don't, there are multiple free resources out there as well that you can take advantage of. For women specifically, I've experienced in the past when the onus of a responsibility to represent women, speak for women, was solely put on me. And that's a burden, no different to many other conversations that happened over the past year and 3 months on putting that burden on people of color, putting that burden of having to represent Asian Americans. There is a lot of that burden that's still being projected onto us. Push back and challenge allies to show up. Again, they need to use their privilege to show up for women and amplify our voices as well. And with that, I want to move on to the importance of culture. None of this can be successful if the culture is broken. And in every single organization, I will argue personally that every single person is an owner of the culture. It starts with us. It starts with you. What are the values and principles that you are known for as a leader, as a peer, as an individual, as a person, as a human being? And then with that, what is your organization known for? And what does it want to be known for is my question as well. And are all of those compatible and can they reconcile well together? Culture should encourage being authentic and give people a sense of a belonging. And it's not just something that happens. It's not dependent on factors way beyond of our control. We can make it, and we can definitely own it and influence it. And we can also control how we show up and how we continue to show up for our partners, our other underrepresented groups, and women within our industry as well. And culture is also not top down. No one can tell you how the culture is to feel and seem within the organization. It starts with how we show up. So harness the voices of all of the people. So often, I would still argue, we leaders have the tendency to declare cultural change, and we hope to see it without listening to what is that people want. But it needs to be a two-way conversation. So make no assumptions and learn about the culture of your org. And if there needs to be a change, change it together. Again, and every single person should be an owner of that conversation. People are more willing to support and buy into what they have a stake in creating. And because of that, they will have more of that sense of commitment and they will feel more connected to your org than ever before. So at the end, it comes down to each individual. And again, I always want to encourage everyone to just ask themselves that question: are you creating an environment around you where everyone has a voice and diverse voices are elevated? And if you are in the leadership role, and if you have a privilege of any sort, are you using that to amplify those voices as well? And so with that in mind, we're closing the loop on define, grow, and keep dimensions. So again, we went through the whole life cycle of how we hire women, how we grow them, how we retain them, and how we make this a successful program in many ways. And I'll just finish off by saying diverse teams are stronger. It's a fact. It's proven with research and multiple studies, and we can touch on the fact that companies with diverse structures are more likely to have above average financial returns and create greater competitive advantage. That's a fantastic business argument, and the companies definitely should take it under consideration. But diverse teams simply perform better. They are more innovative, they are creative, they are smarter, known for better problem solving and decision making. And they are also more dynamic and attract and retain employees better. So there are so many considerations for where, again, as we build all of those programs together, we can influence a creation of what is a much more successful work environment and a much more successful organization in itself with that. And at Facebook, we always say this journey is 1% complete or finished. And I very much agree with that sentiment as it applies to the representation of women in our industries, in physical security industry and cybersecurity industry. This journey is definitely 1% finished. There's just a lot ahead of us. And again, I want to encourage all of you to play an active role in that. And diversification of our workforce starts with us, and it starts with you showing up at conferences of the sort, asking questions, exchanging comments and observations, and being in this together. We are much stronger together. We can be strong individually, but we also can act as each other's force multipliers in all of those conversations. You are never alone in all of those efforts and in those commitments as well. So today, I will finish on that note. I know we have some time left. I didn't see many questions in the chat, but again, I do want to remind everyone, I'm here, Karolina Zborowski, at Facebook, and find me on LinkedIn if you have any questions. If there's anything you do agree with or disagree with and that I've covered today, I would love that conversation, regardless of whether we can brainstorm or just align in some of the thoughts that we've already shared. And thank you for being here with me today. And again, unless there are any questions, I am happy. I'm paying attention to the chat window. I am very happy to also give you the gift of time back. And in the spirit of well-being and mental health, if you can use those next minutes, not having to rush into the next session today, because there's a bit of that overlap built into our schedule, use it and grab a coffee, grab a break, and stay engaged in the remainings of what's yet ahead of us today. Thank you so very much for being here, and I hope this has added some value to you and your environment.